Hi guys, in this part 1 series of our CSS tutorial, we will cover about Flexbox. So the goal of this video is we want to come up with this kind of layout. So this is for the desktop and this is for the mobile as well. And we will also try to tweak the ordering of our boxes without changing the inline HTML. But before we do with these exercises, I just want to explain to you first why was Flexbox is created, how Flexbox works, what are the do's and don'ts of Flexbox, and what are the properties of Flexbox. Okay, so let's jump in first with how or why was Flexbox is created. So basically, way back when the website can be only accessed in computer, the demand of making your website responsive is not really mandatory because, as I said, you can only access the website via computer. You cannot access it on a mobile, on a smartphones, and yeah, so you cannot access it in other dimension. So the way for the developer or programmer style a certain website is using this type of method. They can use they use inline, they probably use float, inline block, and absolute. So that's the old way of styling either an element or a page layout. But since the technology is evolving, it is growing, and there's a lot of new devices was created that is compatible in viewing a website. This type of strategy right now is no longer applicable, and it will give you a problematic issue with the styling if you keep using this one. So that's the reason why the Flexbox is created, because this type of method is no longer applicable, or they said like this type of thing is cannot longer handle the demand of making your website responsive in different devices. So I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to give you an example why this type of method is no longer, it's no longer applicable in making a perfect, pixel perfect layout. So let's say you use an inline block style. So basically when you use an inline block style, you will get, or the browser will automatically generate a white space into your page layout. So it can cause you problematic issue if you have a lot of inline blocks that you declare in your wrapper. And if you are really specific with your layout, like if your boss is really specific with the layout that they want, then that can cause you some issue. Okay. And then the other thing as well, which is the very common styling method that our old developers do is the float thing. So basically, float really is not recommended for page layout. And actually, it is only or applicable to use for wrapping a text around the images. And aside from this thing, like you really you really need to redeclare the clearing fixes into the float in order to fix that quirky styling behavior. I know if you are using float before, you can a bit relate to what I'm saying. Like float is really pain in the ass in styling if you keep using that. So those are just the reason why you should avoid using this one in styling your page layout. So that's how Flexbox was created, to basically, um, support the demand of creating different complex design of the website. All right, so let's jump into the actual exercise. So I have this inline HTML here. I have this flex container that will serve as a wrapper of our Flexbox. And then I have this boxes in here that will serve as our flex items. So basically, the elements that you need to have in order to come up with the Flexbox styling is you need to have at least a flex container class, and then you also need to have a flex items, right? So currently the design looks like this because we really haven't put anything yet. I haven't declared any flex boxes yet into my CSS code. So this is how it looks right now. And then, like, the best practices, by the way, when you are declaring a flex items into your flex box, is always put a common CSS in your flex boxes. So you need to have a common class rather, into your flex items, and then a unique class into the different flex items. So as you can see here, the common class is items, 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 and then these are the unique class for every flex items or boxes. So reason why we're putting a common class in here, so we can easily target global declaration into our flex boxes or flex items rather. Okay, so I'm gonna open this style in here and we will target this flex container. I'll put a color red so you can see it. Background red. Then we just put something margin tab pixel. 20 pixel actually. Okay, and then I'm gonna add. So I already have that, and then I want to set a height of 200. Let's just have a 100 pixel height there. Okay. Now we will set the display into Flexbox. Display, set it to flex. Okay. So if you notice in here, actually let me just add a little bit of padding at the top. No, just keep it that way for now. Okay, so we have, if you notice in here, the Flexbox was automatically converted into row. So this is the default direction of a Flexbox. It is set by row here. Okay, this is the goal of our desktop version. But in case if you want that to be in column, all you need to do is just change or put a flex direction called column. Okay, so as you see, it drops like into horizontal, vertical position rather. And then, okay, we have that already. Okay, so okay, so let me just put different colors onto our flex boxes so we can see the difference. I'm gonna add a yellow for the box 1, and box 2 will be background of green, and then box 3 would be background of blue. Okay, right, so let's say you want this column to be reversed. Like I want this CTA to be at the top of my flex box. What you can do is just use the column reverse. So you can see here, like it's sorry, it reversed. So I'm gonna revert it back to the default layout, since the goal of this video is we want to come up with this kind of thing, right? Next is let's say I want this to be like, if you notice in here, like the boxes are stretching. Like every time I put like a 300, let's say I maximize the height into 300 pixel, it still stretch, like the boxes still stretch until the end. Now, if you want this to be, maybe centered, or you want it to be um, put in the end of your container, what you can do is just set another properties called justify content. Then let's say I want it to be center. So you hear, like this one was set to center already. Now I want this to remove this extra, like extra yellow in here, extra green in here, and extra blue in here. So what you can do is set another properties called align items, and then let's say I want it to be center. If you notice here, those, because by default the items are stretched by default. Now if you come up with if you declare something different, then it will obviously change to the declaration that you have set. Okay. By the way, these properties that I set in the flex container cannot be used in your flex items. So if you put something in here, like the flex items, if you put it on your flex, if you put these properties into that flex items, then there's no changes. So properties that is in the flex container can be only used in the flex container. So similar with the flex items, properties in the flex items can be only used in the flex items. So I hope that makes sense. Okay. And let's say the other flex properties as well that you can use for the Flexbox is so-called flex wrap. So by default, the it is set to no wrap by default. If you don't want to wrap your your items inside the container, you don't need to put this one because this is already default in your flex wrap. But if you wanted to override to wrap, then just simply put that into something like this, or redeclare the properties of flex wrap into wrap. Now I'm going to show you an example how this flex wrap works. If I put something in the index.html, like if I add a lot of word into the index that into my HTML code. So if you notice in here, the text, this box 2 override, or it's not, it's overriding the container. Okay. But if you put something in your style, you put like a flex wrap there, it will like it the flex items will adjust accordingly. So yeah, I hope I was able to explain it with you guys. If not, just bear with me. I'm just trying to document this process for my own for my own learning, because I tend to forget this type of like thing, like rules and flex boxes, if I keep it on my mind. So yeah, the purpose of this video really is for reminding me how all of these properties works in a Flexbox. Okay, now I will revert this back. Okay, right, and then I will change the style here, the height here to 80 pixel, or just make it 100 pixel. Okay, now since we want to come up with this kind of design here, by the way, if you want to change the ordering of your flex items, you can set something in your flex. Um, yeah, I think we already have covered the flex container. We already have a justify. In the flex container, you can come up with a justify content for centering your flex items. You can put align items, and then you can also put a flex prop if you want to, like something like this if you want to. And then, yeah, I think we already covered that. There's also a flex inline. We'll not cover that in this video. Like in the flex items, we can come up with something called flex inline. But that is a different approach. Like if you notice in here, when I set a flex, there is a space, like a space on the text. Like there is a space block. But if I put flex inline, it's really just in line to the text. You also need to set something like flex direction if you want to overwrite the column. Yeah, it's just in lining. So my bad with that. Okay, now I want this to be, the goal of this video is I want this, the other thing, I just forgot. Let me just say, just add flex there. And then I want this to be placed in between, like edges of the header, similar with this one. So what you can do is just remove the justify. Instead of center, you can put in space between. Okay, they're ready. Right now we are almost we're already getting what we want, like this. Now we just need to play around with the sizes of our flex boxes. So what I can do for now here is I want to target the global classes of the flex box, this one, and then I want this to be I want them to be equally sized. So what we can do is add a flex grow of 1 pixel, or one rather. By the way, flex grow can be, you can declare something from negative or negative numbers 0 to positive numbers. Okay, and then okay, now the goal here is maybe we can just add a margin on every logo. On the logo 1, I can add a margin right of 10 pixel. And then the box 3, I want to add a margin left of 10 pixel. Now, since I want this navigation to be bigger versus on the other items, what I can do is use a flex basis of 200 pixel. Okay, if you notice here, it's already 200 pixel bigger. What I can also do is come up with a flex grow of 2, so it's a lot more bigger than the logo. Or I can make that 150. Okay. Next is, okay. Actually, I want this to be 0. So it's really, because the one is too high, too lengthy. So I just set that to 0, and then I want to add, let me just remove the flex grow, because we already set the flex spaces to 200 pixel. Okay. By the way, flex grow will, let's say if you set something number 2 there, basically what will happen is it will be 2 times bigger than the other boxes. Since you have set the box 1 and box 2 to 0, it will be 2 times bigger. And if you set that to 1, it will be also 1 times bigger. Okay, let me just remove this one here because I already have a 400 pixel. Okay, now the other thing here is I want this to be set to the right. So what you can do is have something called margin right auto. Actually left, should be left. So if you notice here, like we almost have this design that we want. What we can just do is just change this wrapper in here. I'm gonna add a max width of 180 pixels, and then I want to add a margin of that. See how it looks now. Okay, so we already have this one. I will change this background red. I'm going to remove that background red there and put a header. See how it looks now. Okay, so we're almost done. I can add also something on the, like if you want this logo to be stretched versus on other boxes, what you can do is set something like align items or align self. So align self is similar with the align items. But if you set something in your flex items, it will read superior versus on your align items. So if I put something there called stretch, you'll see there that the logo is stretching from top to bottom. Again, the properties from the flex boxes like align self, flex basis, flex grow can be only applied in flex items. So similar with the flex container, you cannot apply justify content, justify items, flex wraps, flex direction, display, and the list goes on into your flex items. I'm going to create a cheat sheet on this on my website for your reference. Okay, so let's jump in on other thing, ordering. Okay, so let's say the number, like this logo, you want it to be at the top next to the CTA. You want it to be on the last part. So what you can do is set the box number 1 to order number 3 or 1. So by default really is the box or this boxes is ordered to 0. So if you set that to 1, then it will be positioned after the logos. Okay, and then if you want that CTA to be on the other side, then you can have an order of -1, which is lesser than 0. Right? So that's basically how it works, guys. I'm going to remove this stretch here. What is the other thing that we need to cover? Okay, the other thing as well is if you want to set something, let's say a flex, I'll remove that. Remove that too. So if you want to set something here like flex row, and then 2, something like that. Instead of putting this one into 2 lines, what you can do is just use a shorthand, which is equivalent to flex row and flex spaces. So that is the shorthand for the flex row and flex spaces. Okay. I think we've already covered everything. Flex row, order, self-align. So that's basically how it works, guys.